On my website, it kind of explains like this is the but maybe everybody go there thinking they're going to get everything for free. So when you break off the countries into their these states
I
into
have to
their
say, and maybe we can start getting some names together. Maybe we get some signatures together and living with people with the same ideologies. And there's nothing. Be honest. Now it was a party at one time. Hello, we're back to the undivided America. I'm going to introduce myself quickly. I introduced myself once before in an earlier show. We've only done one show. I introduced myself briefly on that show, but we're on the second show, so we'll do it again. Just so I can, if anybody wants to hear a little bit about me, they can go back to the first or second show. My name is John. Johnny the Chooch. Johnny the Chooch, giving that name by a friend of mine. Her name is Kirsten. Obviously, I'm Italian. Okay. So she calls me Johnny Chooch. So it's funny. So we're trying to bring a little bit of a light side to what we're talking about. Okay. Of course, if you look at, I'm going to bring up my website. This is sort of a politically motivated podcast. And it's actually based on a website that I built called the Ununited States of America. Just a real quick, again, a little bit about me. Just today is what today's January 31st. Yes, it is, and I'm in Pennsylvania, and it's freezing, and it was like 2 below zero last night. So good time to do a podcast, and indoors, trying to stay warm. The podcast is really based on the mess of a country we have, and it's hopefully going to be a solution. The website I came up with, or my opinion of what I think will sort of be a solution to what our problems are in the country. Real quick, my producer is Sarah. Sarah is listening on the other end, so she will help me if I fumble or blunder or whatever the case may be. She'll just talk to me right here and let me know. Stop rambling, move on, whatever the case may be, because we can ramble on these things, right? I always made a joke. I made a joke on the first podcast that there's like 8 billion people in the world, and there's 7.5 billion podcasts, and this is the 7.5 billion and one. Okay, my name is Johnny the Chooch. Come from New Jersey originally. I do identify as an Italian guy from New Jersey. Moved out to Pennsylvania about a year and a half ago. Love it. Great community. Just on the other side in the Lehigh Valley. So it represents New Jersey a little more than I wanted to. You have to go out a little bit further to get like into Pennsylvania as I thought of it as a kid, But it's really great. People are good. And the reason I kind of came up with this whole scenario on the website, the United States of America, is because I didn't think at 60 years old that I would have to do this or talk about anything of this nature. The only thing I worried about as a kid was, believe it or not, I caught the tail end. I was born in 1966. I caught the tail end of, football cards, baseball cards, what football socks, my favorite team I was going to wear to school, who was going to get to the stickball box. We used to play stickball against the school. Who was going to get to the stickball box before the other guys did after school? I mean, we worried about things of that nature. Used to be able, no kidding, used to be able to go to the candy store, and this is true. You could go with a dime and you could get 10 pieces of candy for a penny each. We used to walk there. That's what we used to think about. I don't know what kids think about today. I mean, my kids are older, in their 20s and all that, but I don't know. I kind of feel bad for what's going on in the world, and I guess hopefully everybody's trying to get on board and making themselves useful and trying to make the world a little bit better for their children or the rest of their family or whatever. Again, I would never think that this is where we would be. So, um, website. Um, I came up with this website. If Sarah can bring it up for a second, we can see that we start off with a red and blue picture of the United States, and that's basically giving us the indication that we're divided, right? And we are. I want to get something clear. I consider myself a traditionalist now. This whole thing of liberal communism and conservativeness is completely juvenile. Uh, I don't think the forefathers that came up with the Constitution and the people that died for America thought that we would digress morally and ethically as human beings in this country, where we would come up with uh, two parties to run a country, which really is one party, because either party does nothing. It does nothing. This is government in this country is no better than the mafia was in the 70s and the 60s when the Godfathers made it and all that. If you ever know anything about the Godfather Mafia, they had to take the mafia down because it was getting out of control and it was organized and it was getting big. The government learned very well from the mafia and has turned into the government mafia. So they, fraudulently run this country and steal your money and use it on everything that they're not supposed to. And that's both sides. Okay, that's both sides. Come to that conclusion. So I'm a traditionalist. What's a traditionalist? I would assume a definition would be somebody that like gets up, you go to work, you have your coffee or your tea. I drink tea. You go to lunch, you come home from work. Normally, we find somebody to be with in our life if we can. If not, that's okay too. But meaning try to have a family, a nuclear family, and some people watch football on Sundays like I did, and some people play tennis or whatever the case may be. Live your life. I mean, society, civilizations have been around for like 10,000 years. 10,000 years. People have been doing this, believe it or not. Maybe I'm exaggerating. 5,000 years, the Samaritans, I believe. So people have been doing that, getting up, acting as a village, surrounding each other, protecting each other from whatever they needed to be, raising families, and making obviously this population on this planet bigger. Okay, I think we're at like 8 billion and something people, right? I do believe, excuse me, that 90%, maybe 95% of the people on this planet want to be left alone. They want to stay with their own kind. They want to stay within their own ideology, living with people with the same ideologies. And there's nothing wrong with that. And they want to get up and eat, have something to eat, and have babies and create life and things of that nature. I do really do. The 10% or 5% of the hunk of junks that run countries, for some reason, run countries, have to ruin everything. They have to continually distract and cause confusion and chaos. I don't get it. I don't understand it at this point in 2026. There's more resources. There's more money. There's more ways to live in this country for everybody can be in the world that can be happy. But, it just seems like, there's always got to be a war. There's always got to be somebody killing somebody. There's always got to be somebody wrecking something, And I think America, the American government has jumped on board. I do. I really went back. To me, it goes back to George Bush Sr. He started this. He's the one that poked the bee's nest over in Iraq. He started with those people. I never even heard of Iraq when I was a kid. I really did. I really didn't pay attention. Kuwait, knew nothing about it. Sorry, all you knew is like you heard oil. Is that 15-year-old kid? Oh, Saudi Arabia had oil. Yeah, had oil. That's it. Didn't know anything about it. Didn't know that they cut everybody's heads off and everybody had to live a certain way or whatever. I didn't know that until, he starts a war with them. And now the whole world went berserk. and he is the one that started the one party system in America. Which the one party system is everybody gets a paycheck. Everybody gets a paycheck. Everybody gets a paycheck. Congress people, senators, the deep state. Everybody gets paid. It comes from your taxpayer money. It comes from black money, bad money, and they're spreading it around and basically laughing all the way to the bank. The government is a joke. It's a slap in the face to everybody that they sent out to kill people or be killed, or whoever worked in it, or people that have lost people in any of these wars. None of these wars ever make sense. It's really, it's sad. It's sad. It's sad that people, died for this country, and we've meaning not you and me and Sarah and anybody of my friends, but I say we've as a loud, well, we sort of do, allowed this government, the people that supposedly care about it, use it as a vehicle to make money and to create business for themselves, and it really has nothing to do with patriotism. Okay, enough of that. We get my point. Traditional guy. So first part, we see the undivided. So what I did is I started this website because instead of having a civil war and murdering everybody, which it looks like it's getting to sooner than later. I mean, we have 12 sanctuary states. It's not a lot. That leaves us with 38 states that aren't. But 12 isn't one, then it's not two, it's 12. We are even, and a lot of the states, believe it, are purple. We have states that are purple. Pennsylvania, it's purple. It's really split. Michigan, the swing states are split. So there's a lot of purple states too, where people, sway back and forth depending on who's running for election and who's running politically. So the reason why I started this website is it's an answer. It's an answer, and I really think it's a good answer. We really love to try to sell this to President Trump. The reason why I would want to sell it to him, you only have 3 years of this. He's 3 years left, because I think he's really a guy. And I want to get something clear. I did vote for him. I do. I am for the security of the country, and I am for the economy. But there are things I don't really always agree with. I don't, and one of it is he's a businessman at heart, and he's doing real well business wise. With the other countries, and he's just bringing in some money and things of that nature. And that's great. But the internal part of the country, we're still lagging. And we're talking, meaning housing and foods and cars, and I mean there's things that probably utility expenses, things that I feel probably should be more in his wheelhouse as far as regulating. And we're going to get to that a little bit at some point, in other podcasts. So there's a lot of subjects to go over. All right, but let's stick to this subject. Let's stick to the website right now. He only got 7 million of more popular votes than Kamala Harris, who completely, I think, just didn't deserve that many votes. But point of it is people voted for her, and he didn't get that much more. 7 million is not that much more. That's the size of Manhattan, pretty much. It's not that much more. So we're divided absolutely on on how we feel. So Sarah, if we can go up a little bit, we can get into where we're going with this. Let's see. Yep, I'm going to go that way with it. So it's more or less more like a petition. A little bit more. Let me get the articles in there if you can. A little bit more where I can read those. There they go. So really what this is setting up sort of like a petition. Okay. And what it is what the website is built on. It's not just built on signing this piece of paper, petition, or getting people to sign to say, oh yeah, I want to divide the country. It's really not that. There's a lot of legalities to it. This is thought out on some level. as far as I can take it on whatever level I can take it on. But the way how I see it is we are so uh, divided through ideologies, through religions, through races. It isn't where 90% of the people, when I grew up as a kid, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years ago, was mostly certain types of people with certain types of thinking. And then we sprinkled in other people. No, it's not that anymore, really. Um, uh, it's really divided in a lot of different ways. So, which is creating friction. Okay. And so what it is when you start creating friction and people start living around each other that don't understand each other, don't want to live around each other, you need not to live around each other. It's like being divorced. If you ever, if anybody's ever been divorced or whatever, you wake up and you go, or after a while, a couple of years, it could be 10 years, 5 years, it could be 40 years. And you go, this isn't working. It was really great while it did. I had a great time, but it doesn't work anymore. And if us staying together is just friction and it makes us both not happy, then eventually turns into, not being nice to each other, maybe, whatever, hopefully not physically at some point, but things can go bad. So what it is this is really what it is. I'm asking people to divorce each other in this country as far as your ideologies. And you can do that through an article, which is an Article 5 in the Constitution. And Article 5 says it's a convention of states. You get together with a convention of states. And I'm going to simplify. You can always look it up. But what it is convention of states is you try to get 3/4 of the states to vote on or agree on an amendment to the Constitution. Okay, you can pretty much bypass the Senate and the Congress if you can get 3/4 of the states to vote on this. Okay, and I think that's the easiest way because Congress and the Senates are all about money. They're all dug in. They're all deep stated. They're never going to do it because they want to keep the machine going, just like Abraham Lincoln did in that war. Okay, a lot of what he did wasn't really just about slavery. It was part of it. It was about keeping the South in the Union because they were really economically running the country in a sense, and they wanted to expand to become their own, territory. And he didn't. Okay, so the Congress and the Senate are kind of the same way. They're pulling in Abraham Lincoln. They would never really want anybody because they want to get tax money from all over the country so they can keep funding their bills and get paid and big business scheme, right? So the easiest way would do the convention of states because maybe the governors of each of the states will go, yeah, I want to break away from the union, start my own state. Yeah, maybe I don't want to do this. So if you can get 3/4 of the governors to vote on this amendment, making an amendment in the Constitution, allowing states to free themselves from our union, be independent, they can do whatever they want. Just like they do in Europe, right? In Europe, this whole thing is really, we're going to go down the website. This whole thing is kind of based on a model of Europe, right? So we're going to have, and I use Texas as an example. I have Texas on my website. When we pull it up later, I'll show. Matter of fact, Sarah, you can go up to, I think that's the next thing where I have a star. There you go. There you go. Texas. Texas always wanted to be the Lone Star State. They still want to be the Lone Star State. I just saw something on Facebook. There's a guy holding the flag. He goes, "What's my background?" He goes, "I'm a Texan." And he has a flag. They don't want to be part of the United. They never did. South really never did either. My mother comes from Alabama. All right, I'm half Italian, but my mother comes from Ozark, Alabama. I always just ask my mother all the time, "Mom, as a kid, Mom, what background were you?" She goes, "I'm a Southern American." She was fine. She wasn't racist. She was not. She was a wonderful, beautiful, beautiful woman, cared for everybody. But some people in this country, like the Texans, like want to be separated. And I think it's time to allow that. It's time to allow that. Let them do their own immigration policies, their own they have their constitution, but it's under the umbrella of this constitution. I mean, I'm talking about ripping up constitutions, starting over, letting them do their own laws and run their country just like England runs their country, just like France runs their country. right? Right. So they run their own way. So what we would do is instead of having civil wars and building up all this animosity and wondering who's going to be the president and flip flopping on the midterms, of course, coming up midterms in 26, they're going to flip flop to the Democrats, and then they're going to try to impeach them. Then they're going to flip flop it back. They're going to go. It's a big waste of time, juvenile, what a juvenile existence we live in. And I'm trying to take that away. That's how I feel. So there might be people in this country that think like me and say, hey, it would be great to live in a country, state, country, new territory within this on the northern continent. Go, this is how we want to live. This is how we want to live. You can live however you want. I believe nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. I don't believe that anybody should judge anybody. That's what this isn't about. That's why we're not arguing for one side. I believe in both sides. But one thing I do believe in, I do believe in God. I do believe in God. And one thing God did say, promised you that you will have choices. You will have choices. You are allowed to have choices. You should never live under anybody's rule or anybody human, especially human rule. Maybe him, not anybody human. So we should be able to have a choice to live where we want with people with the same ideologies and way of life. And this is one way of doing it. So if we pass this amendment, we get it going, get it in the Constitution. Different states will be able to create their own territories or country with their own rules and regulations. Of course, there'll be a lot to go behind that, traveling through it, visiting it. The same thing like they do in Europe. But there is a model already. It's Europe. This would be called the New Europe. The New Europe. Of course, you can go into the whole, UN force of, protecting the continent. And there's there's things that have to be talked about, trade scenarios, of course. But we already have a model for that. So it's really easy. And what we have to do, like some people do when they don't get along or they're married, you have to look at each other and go, this doesn't work anymore. People in this country have to look at each other and say, this doesn't work anymore. America doesn't work anymore. It's not the United States of America. People can't stand each other. The whole bumper sticker. I think there's a bumper. Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't there a bumper sticker that says something like, can't we all live together or something? Or there's like a meme or something like that. There's a bumper sticker. Can't we all, what's the word I'm looking for? It pretty much says, we can all no, we can't. No, you can't. A lot of people can't. Different races and religions can't stand each other. So, this is an opt-out. This is an opt-out. We're already segregated in a lot of ways. Different towns and states or whatever have certain different people, and you can't live there or be around there. So we're actually really self-segregating as we speak. So why don't we just make it official? It's just like two people. I keep going back to the divorce thing because 70% of the people in the world are divorced, can't stay together. So instead of sitting back and pretending you're married and everything's okay, you're like, no, it's not okay. It's not okay. I need to get an apartment. You need to get a place. That's what we do. Split everything up. So that's what we're doing. That's what I'm looking to do with this country. Be honest. Now it was a party at one time. It lasted for a while. We're a young country. It didn't last that long. I retract that. It didn't last a long time. We're only 250 years old. Only 250 years old. And we've been, going through this for, decades, right? I mean, so, party, like they say, parties weren't meant to last, right? Parties weren't meant to last. And the party's over. So it's time to recalculate, reset this, and call a spade a spade. So Lone Star State, I would love to see the Texas be the first one to do this. But going back to selling this to President Trump, he loves to be the one that sets the pace. Yeah, we can go up a little bit, Sarah. We're doing why this website kind of went through that. See, there's all the people on my picture. See, it's wonderful. Everybody's cool. Doesn't matter who you are, everybody's cool, you know. But not everybody has the same ideology. So if selling this to him, uh, I would hope like somebody like him would be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I would love to be the first one to allow a state to be, because he likes to be the first to do everything, right? He loves that publicity, and that's good in a way. Moving along, engineering, he's pushing everything else, AI, drilling, you know, the cracking down on immigrants. He's the first one to tariffs are, first one to do a lot of that, do a lot of things that we don't do, and that's what excuse me, half the people cheer for, and the other half of people argue about, right? So this would be a great thing for him to put on his platform, and the way to sell that to him would be the first one on your block to let a country leave the United States Union and be their own thing. Be the first one on your block. He has nothing to lose or nothing to gain, from this. So, and stop spending resources, energy, and time on trying to keep 362 million people together. I don't know about you. I could care less what goes on in Hawaii. I could care less what goes on in Alaska. I don't want to see people get hurt and stuff like that, but do I care what they're doing day to day? Do I care what their rules and no? Right now I live in Pennsylvania. This is what I care about right here. And it's better to monitor your life and have more say so, to manage life within a smaller area, at least within a state. Hey, I'm even for splitting up states, right? West Pennsylvania, Eastern Pennsylvania, North New Jersey, South, because they're different. I had another issue, cities. Why, cities should be separate from New York City. Why should somebody all the way up north in New York that lives in a cabin pay or have to hear or deal with anything that's going on in New York City? It's crazy. Absolutely absurd. New York City should be their own entity, fund themselves. The rest of the state should have their governor. New York City should have their governor and have a different territory and live. Everybody's living off of everybody on different states, different cities. They're pulling money from everywhere. And a lot of people that are just hardworking, good people are paying for, programs that don't work, even under Donald Trump, even under Trump. We got to stop using energy and people's money, using people's money from other places around this country to help other people we don't know, or nobody really that doesn't care about you. It's okay to say that. Yeah, it's okay to say that. It's okay to say, listen, we've done this. We tried God's way. He made this thing. He made this thing called America, melting pot. And, I personally think it was an experiment. I think we're guinea pigs of some level, and want to see if we could get along. Entities put different people on the planet, and they try to have this one place to put them together. And it did for a little while, but it doesn't anymore. So we need to stop using time, money, energy into supporting people or running other states that they don't care about you, that you're helping them. We need to confine it to smaller areas where people can live amongst each other. Where are we at, Sarah? Where are we at as far as going up a little more on the website? So we have to see the mixture of people there. Let's see, where are we going to next? That's really just talking. Yeah, we're just talking about the website, and that's where I'm coming from with that right now. Yeah, boy, I wrote a lot about why we're doing the website. Look at that. I I think it really gets down to let's see. Question. Okay, so all right. So really, if you go to my website, it'll explain. It'll kind of rehash. You can read about why I did it. Towards the bottom, really more or less gets about asking about whether you are for this. If you think that there's a possibility that we could start rezoning America and letting states become their own countries or territories, there's a question there. You can always go to uuamericans.com and you can email or say hi. Reiterate, I am Johnny the Chooch. Johnny the Chooch. That's right. Here in Pennsylvania. Uh, you know, like I said, this isn't a one-sided I'm not one-sided on either side, ideology-wise or politically. Um, I'm basically for I'm for realizing that this government, this country doesn't work anymore. So we have to make it uh, uh, make it smaller. Make it smaller and let individual states become their own. And again, the model would be Europe. Europe has all their countries over there. They function. The Asian continent, they're broken up. There's Taiwan, there's China, there's, Philippines, they broke up. Africa's got what, like 100 countries, I don't know, 80 countries or whatever. South America, all right? South America, so they have all their different countries. And then you have, your Spanish, you have Italy, and you have Greece, you have Spain. They're all broken over there with, sort of why can't we do that here? Why can't we do this? This isn't getting any better. It's continually going to be split. And it looks like people are getting more radicalized and becoming more physical and, chanting things that, as far as, running into the streets and stuff like that. And I think what I'm just trying to say is, like, let's catch this before, it gets stupid, I guess. I mean, I don't see it getting any better. But Sarah, you know what? All right, well, put it this way. I kind of went over the website. I kind of gave you my feeling on what's going on. So probably what we're going to do is we're going to end this podcast. And I want to, let's see, what is it? Podcast. Okay, we're at 32 minutes. Okay, 32 minutes. That's enough for today. That's enough. I think you really got an earful on how I felt. You got to know me a little bit better. I did have one earlier podcast, kind of talked a little bit about the same thing. I think the next podcast, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the Constitution. All right, the Constitution, and that'll probably be a hot subject because that's kind of what started America, and that's why everybody came over. So let's sign off. Today's the 31st of January, 2026. My name is Johnny the Chooch out here in Pennsylvania. I hope everybody will enjoy this. Go to my website, uuamericans.com. Let me hear what you have to say. And maybe we could start getting some names together. Maybe we can get some signatures together, and maybe one day this can be a reality. We can bring it to the president. Okay, enjoy, and I'll see you next time.